The Investor Club bonus stories.
Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching Investor Club bonus stories. I need you guys to buckle up. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of stories to talk about. First, Hallmark's catalog says Jefferies, and we're talking about the analysts, urged Tesla to cancel the Cybertruck.
What?
Yeah, I'll put the article right here so you can read it for a second. Jefferies analyst Philip Houchiot cut the price target of Tesla to $210 and said, as 2024 is already a lost year for growth, allocating capital to support residuals would be better use than Cybertruck. And Elon tweeted out a clown face because that guy is a fucking clown.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should just stick to the Model Y. I mean, that's what's making you the money. Why go after the silly-looking truck that you're making?
And here's the thing.
Why would you want to break into new markets and put your competition out of business?
Here's the thing. I think if you're out of touch, right? If you just live in your little circle in Wall Street.
You know what I like? Residuals. That's the best thing, Bob.
Residuals.
Let's invest in residuals. Oh, I got my wife some residuals for her birthday. It was great. All my kids got residuals.
Yeah, if you're out of touch, then you don't seem to realize that, okay, so many people have asked me this question over the past couple of years. How many Cybertruck reservations are there? Well, no one knows for sure because Tesla doesn't talk about the number. How funny. Any other company in the world would say this number from the mountaintops. What's the number? 2 million. 2 million people plunked down $100 to get the Cybertruck, which is years away. I mean, most people know when they plunk that money down. Like, remember, it's 2019 when they opened it up. Mm-hmm. I plunked down 100. You plunked down 100, right? We knew it was going to be a while.
Now, did some people cancel the reservations?
Sure.
Yes.
But many more didn't.
Was it 1 million people? Was it 2 million people? No, it
you-
was just a few.
Do you know why it's 2 million and not 3 million? Because Elon closed it at a certain point. It's like, I can't keep taking your money.
Right.
So it would be more. So if you're out of touch, you go like, I don't think many people are going to want this thing because, you know, the Rivian looks pretty good.
And I talked to my wife, who I run everything by, and she said that it was the ugliest thing that she ever saw, and no one would buy it. So therefore, no one will buy it.
Here's the thing. Never before in human history that I know of has anything this crazy been mass produced and gone into the world, right? Mm-hmm. When you see it in person, Jesse and I have. We've been in it. We've seen it. We've touched it. I would have licked it if they let me. When you see it, you go, oh, wow, this is amazing. Now, you still may not want a pickup truck or need one or have the budget for it, but you're not going to go, I think most people are not going to go like, oh, no. They're going to start to like it. Why? Because let's face it, we're humans, okay? And when you see something over and over and over again, like a mug or a car or whatever, you begin to go like, oh, it's familiar. I kind of like it. Mm-hmm. We all saw many things that we first thought were crazy looking. Let's talk about another stainless steel vehicle that we've all grown to love. You know what I'm talking about. The DeLorean. When we first saw it, many people were like, that's weird. It's angular and stainless steel and the doors are weird. And then maybe it was because of the movies, the Back to the Future movies. Maybe it was just because it just became kind of an iconic part of culture. But
and maybe it's because you've never seen a fucking rusty one.
Right. Exactly. It became something that everyone, I think, would list probably in their top 10 of cool cars. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm spending a lot of time on this tweet, but basically I'm just showing you how out of touch Wall Street is, okay? This is Jefferies, by the way. Big. They're on almost all the earnings calls.
It's not a guy named Jeffrey.
No.
It's a whole firm.
Right. Okay. Hallmark's catalog then put out this most shorted stocks in the world. And as you can see, Tesla's number one with $16.9 billion shorting it. Now, this is just to prove, again, that there's so many clueless people out there. We talked last week about Chanos and how basically he's gone. He closed his fund because he was basically riding on shorting Tesla, and that didn't work out. And Elon said they're gluttons for punishment. Genevieve says finance layoff announcements in 2023. So if we're trying to get a sense as investors of how the overall economy is doing, we should look at the banking sector. Citigroup, 7,000 employees laid off. Goldman Sachs, 4,000. I won't go through the whole list. You can read it. Big banks have laid off 20,000 employees year to date, according to Forbes. Apparently more to come. Everything's fine.
So why are they laying off people?
Well, when do you lay off people? There's only a couple reasons I can think of. Either things aren't doing well and you got to keep your profits up, or you're replacing them with AI. I don't think it's AI yet, but
I don't think I've been to the bank. I don't think they know what AI is.
No, I mean, we keep showing you charts and things about how the bank sector it's not that strong. The more I've been thinking about it, the more I've been letting my brain think about the fractional reserve banking system. I don't know why we all bought into it so fast. It's not as strong a system as you think. Let's take a look at this from Chief Nerd. New visualization shows the magnitude of U.S. tax dollars sent to foreign countries since 2001. Each dot represents $100,000. So we got to see this as a video. So let's play the video. So 2002. Each dot is $100,000. While you're looking at it, look at the charts at the top. Those numbers are changing too. So next to each flag, you'll see that like Israel's getting a lot of money, right? But look at the countries that aren't getting much money yet, because we're still back in 2008. So look down at Ukraine, right?
I don't see it.
Well, it's
okay, there
it's
it is.
down here. Yep.
It's up there.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's up here. And numbers not really changing because we didn't really care much about Ukraine back in
Okay.
pre-2021, 22. So just keep your eye on that Ukraine number there, still not moving, right? We're now into 2017, 2018,
Amazing graphic.
2019, 2020, hasn't budged, 2021. Oh, there we go. Look at that number grow up. Wow. Now, the reason I found that really interesting is we're talking about data. Data is dry. It's numbers, right? If I could give you chart after chart about how much money we spend. Seeing it in a visualization of money just pouring out into other countries, and then which countries those are, which streams are getting bigger, which streams are getting cut off. You probably have to watch this a couple times or more just to really fully get it. I'm not in any way saying that our country shouldn't send money to other countries. You know, I'm not saying that. But I do think it's important for us to realize how much money, and to realize that if you were to stop 100 people on the street and ask them, how much money do you think we sent to X country, Y country? They probably would have no idea. They'd probably be off by a factor of 100 or 1,000, right? It's mind-boggling to wrap your head around these numbers. Well, if we don't know that, okay, if the average people in the country sending the money don't even know, what the f*** is going on? Like, we should have some idea. Like, after World War II, I think every American kind of had an idea of, oh, yeah, we're helping Germany and Japan, you know, to gather their footing after the war. I don't think now we have any idea. I mean, now, maybe today, we know we're spending a lot of money on Ukraine. But there was none practically up until recently. And the amount that we're sending is incredible.
And if we weren't in debt, I think.
Right.
So, okay, let's say I'm just a regular guy and I'm in debt, right? And you're like, oh, Jesse, how's it going? And I'm like, oh, I'm doing pretty good, but I'm racking up a lot of debt. And you're like, oh, okay. I mean, you want to talk about your finances? Like, what are you spending money on? And, well, I was giving it to my friend Dave. He's not having a good time, and I just figured I'd send him some money. And you're like,
Right.
oh, how much money are you giving him? And let's say I was like, I don't know, like $30,000
Right.
a year. And they're like, what? That's a lot of money for you, someone who's in debt and doesn't
Exactly.
make enough money to you run at a deficit. Why are you sending all this money to your buddy Dave, who isn't doing that well?
I also think it goes back to being appreciated. If you know that you're just going to keep getting money from Jesse every year, then you stop appreciating him because you just assume you'll get it. And when he slows down the rate that he's giving you, you're like, you're giving me only $32,000 this year. You don't appreciate him. If he goes, Dave, I can't give you any more money. I'm in total debt. I have to focus on my counts, my budget, and maybe next year I'll be able to. Then Dave's going to appreciate, oh my God, all those years you're giving me all that money. Wow, I really noticed now when it's gone. So I don't know. I feel like, again, if our country's not stable, then and our banking system and our companies aren't stable, then how can we expect to have good investments here? Okay, so here's a quote from Gergavin. He says, Forbes does it again. And if you look at these 4 Forbes covers, you might be like, I don't know what you're talking about. So let's go through it. First one is CZ. As we know, he was just indicted, and he's going to owe, $3.5 billion because he scammed everyone from his crypto exchange.
Nice.
Elizabeth Holmes, who said, I've solved all biological problems, and she was lying. Adam Newman from WeWork, who's like, I have a great company, and it's basically built on a house of cards. And Sam Bankman-Fried, who also was lying to you. Of course, these all got front pages on Forbes. And Elon said, almost as good as Cramer, talking about Jim Cramer. Because, look, this is all pay to play. This is all legacy media selling you a story. They don't either know what the they're talking about or they're corrupt. I've got to believe by now there's some corruption going on, because how did they get it wrong so many times?
And again, for the first one, you're like, oh, well, you're going to pick some losers from time to time. But when it's just like, one after another. It's a little scary. Shouldn't you feel a little scared that, this like,
We're Forbes.
Well, and also
We're Forbes.
as investors,
We know everything. We're Forbes.
you'd get a subscription to Forbes, and you'd be like, I'm just going to follow what
Listen
they say.
to us. We're Forbes.
Right.
We will tell you everything you need to know. Look at these people on the cover. They look so attractive, and they are going to make you money. They're not going to steal the money from you. Oops. 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 Oops.
Jim Fahn, who works at NVIDIA, he's an AI scientist. He says it's pretty obvious that synthetic data will provide the next trillion high-quality training tokens. I bet most serious LLM groups know this. The key question is how to sustain the quality and avoid plateauing too soon. The Bitter Lesson by Richard Sutton continues to guide AI development. There's only two paradigms that scale indefinitely with compute: learning and search. It's true in 2019 at the time of writing, true today, and I bet will hold true till the day we solve AGI. And Elon said, yeah, it's a little sad that you can fit the text of every book ever written by humans on one hard drive. Sigh. Synthetic data will exceed that by a zillion. And Jim Fahn went on to say, lots of synthetic data will come from embodied agents, e.g. Tesla Optimus, if we can simulate them massively.
So what the hell are you talking about?
All right, so investors, we have to get into AI. I'll talk about that more in the show. But synthetic data, okay. I've been really wrapping my head around this week. We talk a lot about how all these LLMs get their data, right? They scrape stuff from the internet. They XAI, for instance, is going to get a lot of it from Twitter. That's good. It's good to get data from humans. But now I'm starting to wonder, once we get to super intelligence, we may not need our data anymore. Because if you think about it, our data is pretty flawed. Also, our data is pretty weak. I was thinking about you and I. We make a lot of videos. We've made... I think just on this channel alone, just on Now You Know, we've made 1,300 plus.
Yeah.
But like on all our other channels, so like say 2,000 videos, right? Lots of information and data, but really hard to get much of the scientific data out of that. Like for instance, we converted an MG midget. It took us 2 years, hours and hours of our time. We learned a lot. But there's not a lot of data from that. Even though we filmed some of it and it's pretty and whatever, like, do you know how much to torque that that bolt onto the thing? No, we learned it, but we didn't share it well. So you didn't get much data from us. Let's go to driving cars. Right now, Tesla has the lead. They have 5 million robots on the road that are driving. They're seeing all these edge cases of mattresses falling off of trucks and things that you don't normally see, learning what to do in that case. Great. But I was thinking about it. If we get the simulations better, then pretty soon we could have a simulation of a mattress falling off a truck on a cloudy day when the road surface is icy and a deer runs across the road. We could get all sorts of things that you just can't get in the world, and we could train on that, right? We could tell the computer, oh, okay, so watch out for the mattress, watch out for the deer, but I have to be very careful because if I oversteer, blah, blah. That's really good data to have because you and I can't go out and practice that very easily, right? We'd have to make a whole course or something. I guess what I'm saying is up until now, to make that synthetic data, you would have to have a bunch of human programmers thinking of each of those cases, putting in the physics of the mattress falling off the truck, doing all this stuff. It would be almost virtually impossible. But when we get to superhuman kind of AI level, we can have the AIs making the simulators. And if the simulators are good, and I mean truthful in terms of physics, then you can get simulated data. And that's what Jim's talking about it here. Synthetic data that is good data. But he says, he asks this question, how do you sustain the quality? How do you avoid plateauing too soon? How do you make it so that the data you're getting in the simulator is actually real? Is that really what happens when a mattress falls off a truck?
Well, and it's not only that, it's thinking of all the edge cases.
Right.
It's like, I might not think that a tank could drive across a highway.
Right.
And so therefore, if we've never seen it before,
Right.
a thing might not simulate it. And this is just an example. This is not a very good example. We're talking about like other stuff to try and, again, get above the kind of level of total human consciousness.
Let's go to science for example, right? If you and I are researchers, we're doing, let's say, some high level biology stuff with DNA, right? We have to do petri dishes and we have to spin it and it takes time and 30 hours before we see what happened to the bacteria, right? A lot of effort, human effort and time goes into finding out which strains of this bacteria do whatever, right? Well, there's already computer simulations that mean we don't have to do as much of that, where we can narrow it down. Oh, I don't have to spend time on these 10,000 bacteria DNA things. I can just focus on this one because the computer said that's the most promising. Great. That's a simulation. That's an example of this.
A better one would be even a plane. We're very good at designing airplanes now because the physics is not that difficult.
Right.
And so
We just plug it in.
You basically just plug it in.
And then we get what we think is going to be a good plane. Maybe we just build that one prototype and try it out for real. What I guess we're going forward with here is if you can make the simulations follow the rules of physics, which are pretty simple rules, right? Then, and the rules of biology and so forth, then in theory, you could plug all those rules into the computer and say, make your own simulations, right? And don't bother humans having to do the science. Do the science in your brain. And so therefore, I think pretty soon, we're not going to need humans doing much of this work. AGI is going to just surpass us in terms of how much new data and research collection it can do.
Because you have to think that every human out there, all the data that we put out on the internet, whatever that may be, is not going to be perfect data.
Right.
It's not going to be at the cutting edge of science.
It might be corrupt data. You might have paid me, as an oil lobbyist or whatever, to find out that, make sure you find out that solar panels are bad. Mm-hmm. And then I do, wrong research to show you what you want to get.
So when you have an LLM, that's why we're not getting like the most perfect answers from LLMs, because again, they don't exactly know what to do. So that's what this is what this synthetic data stuff is about.
So just keep that in your mind as we progress here. Okay. So Andy says, interesting post from an OpenAI employee claiming that all large language models reach the same endpoint regardless of training strategy or clever tricks. This is, of course, what the bitter lesson teaches us, but useful to get an up-to-date confirmation that it still holds true. And Elon said,
data is the spice. And this is a reference to Dune, where spice is this extraordinary substance commodity.
So I think, again, what's happened is up until a certain point, you say, well, let's just use existing human data. Great. But at that point, I think we're at this point that we're at now, I think we're realizing we've pretty much used up all the data. Like it's better to go ahead and just simulate the data.
Because you can imagine if all you listen to, right, is your friend Dave, and Dave is your one source, and you have literally nobody else in your life. You've never met anyone else in your life. This is what it's like to be an LLM AI.
Right.
Okay, this is what Dave says. Then you add a new person, Sarah. Okay, Sarah told me all this new other stuff. I have these two sources of information to base all of my data on. Which one's right if they conflict? And also, is this all that there is what these people are telling me? Now multiply that, of course, by millions and millions, but you're still missing something.
Right. So up until now, LLMs are really good at telling you things like making poetry and telling you things that humans do, like tell me what to do with this avocado and this egg. But I think going forward, what we really want to know is the science beyond what we've even found out. I want to learn more. And I think that's what we're getting at here. So let's keep moving on. Dave Lee says, I'd like to see a partnership between Tesla and xAI. Tesla provides a monetary investment into xAI as well as Dojo compute resources going forward. 2, xAI gives Tesla some equity and access to Grok AI going forward. What do you think, Elon? Elon said,
we'll discuss with Tesla board.
So I titled this little story, because if you're a Tesla investor, and again, disclaimer, we're not financial advisors. Don't just run out and buy Tesla because we said to. But let's keep going with this. Stephen Mark Ryan says Tesla investing in xAI is the no-brainer of no-brainers. Combined, Tesla plus xAI has the complete recipe for AGI. Tesla has the compute, the foundational building blocks of AGI underway with FSD, 5 million data collecting robots, which are the vehicles, and Optimus Bot. Also, xAI has the X data stream. Replicating Tesla's FSD capabilities require a data flywheel, which requires the building and deployment of millions of vehicles to collect data, close to impossible for others to do this, so how does anyone catch up? X's data stream of text, images, and video is what Tesla is missing from solving AGI entirely, so both companies need each other. And Elon said,
this does seem like a compelling argument, but must go through a formal Tesla board process and independent valuation.
Okay, did you catch up with where I just went with this? If Tesla, first of all, xAI is a startup. It's not worth a whole lot at the moment because they just started. Why do you think he had to do it this way? He's already told us. He could have just paid people to join him, but they didn't want that. They knew how big this was going to be. They wanted equity. They wanted to become the next billionaires. So all these people that just started are getting shares of xAI because if this works, this will become the next Facebook, Meta, whatever, Google. So tiny to start. If Tesla invests, let's say 25% in xAI to buy some new computers and do whatever, then when xAI blows up and becomes the next Google, Tesla will become even more valuable. And you might say, well, it's already going to be more valuable because they're going to have this relationship with them. Sure. But you as a Tesla shareholder won't actually physically get to see any of that money. You'll just get to see the kind of benefits of it. Wouldn't you rather have the money in the bank where, just like with, Ford invested in Rivian and they got a big boost to their bottom line when the Rivian shares went up, or Amazon, right? Same thing here. So I just want to plant that seed. If this does happen, and I don't think Elon would have tweeted about it unless he actually was going to go through with it, and got to go through a formal board process. Okay, well, his board does whatever he says. So if he wants to do it, he's going to do it. Ashley St. Clair says X needs a shop feature. TikTok does this very well.
And Elon said, absolutely.
Now, again, we can't invest in X right now, but I've been telling you this. X is going to become the everything app. As soon as they turn on shopping, what do you think is going to happen?
Right.
Especially if you can do microtransactions and buy things that are small.
I haven't actually tried buying anything off of TikTok specifically. And what's also really funny is like Instagram will have reels with all sorts of ads on it, but they're just selling you the ads. They do not have a marketplace. So all of these products that you see on Instagram reels or whatever,
they have to send you somewhere else.
They have to send you to this other random website, which you don't have any login with. Your credit card isn't saved.
I just want to point out, by the way, that Shopify just released some data from last not Cyber Monday, Black Friday. They saw a 22% increase from last year's, because Shopify has like so much of the marketplace. So I don't know if that means that the world economy is doing better and people are buying more Christmas presents, or more people are doing it online. I mean, obviously not that many people go to stores anymore, but
I certainly saw a lot of people out on Black Friday.
Right.
I mean,
so yeah, it could just be that the economy is doing better compared to last year. So this one from Tasha Keeney, she's an ARK Invest analyst. She said, Cruise imploded. It does look as if the company took on more risk than peers like Waymo. So let's look at the chart here. And what we're looking at is adjusted million miles per crash on surface streets only. So we're looking for safety here, right? The bigger the line, the better. So 3.2 million miles driven before a crash in Tesla FSD. Then we go to the next one, which is manually driven Teslas. So if you just take it out of FSD, drive it yourself, you go 0.6 million miles before a crash. Waymo, 0.5 million. Now we go to the national average, so just the average American driving along, and it's, 0.19 million. And then we go to Cruise.
0.04 million, which is bad.
Right.
That's terrible.
Sven says, am I right concluding that FSD is more than 20 times safer than the average 2021 human driver, which easily checks Elon's goal of being at least 10x safer? So a great hurdle was taken with no beta. And Elon says, supervised FSD is vastly safer than human driving. Unsupervised FSD is trending well. Over time, version 12 end-to-end neural nets will far exceed human safety, even when unsupervised. So we're getting the data. Look, it could be different, right? We could be in a world where FSD is just slightly better than humans, or not better. It was crashing more because Cruise, which is autonomous and uses LiDAR and mapping and drives slowly and all this stuff and drives in good weather, is crashing more than humans.
Right.
So they have not figured it out. And why do you think Cruise's CEO left?
Well, I mean, to be fair, Elon is saying that it is supervised full self-driving, which is kind of a oxymoron. Supervised full self-driving.
No,
it's being supervised, so you have the double
True.
benefit of somebody sitting there who
True.
could go like, oh crap, and take over if full self-driving was going to do something wrong.
And you're right. The Teslas without any FSD at all are still safer than the average. So that means that Tesla drivers, I guess, trend
so you
better.
have a multiple effect. Also, I think, and at least in my experience, I only put it into full self-driving when I think that it is a relatively safe environment. So we're definitely you're cherry picking the data a little bit just to be fair.
But I mean, he
the
does
results
say,
are results.
And he does say version 12 is trending well and will far exceed human safety when unsupervised. Right. I mean, we don't see the data for that yet, but he is saying it. Let's go to this. It's just a fun one to break it up. Little palate cleanser here. John Ehrlichman is very funny at these things. 25 things that didn't exist on Thanksgiving 20 years ago. iPhone, Facebook, YouTube, X, and so forth. What I want you to do now is look at that list. I want you to do two things. I want you to tell me how many you've used and how many would you miss if you couldn't use them anymore. So I went through the list and I've used 18 of those 25 things. And by used, I mean like I know what, like I haven't ridden on a Falcon 1, but I know what it is. And I kind of count that as something that I've No, I actually didn't count that because I didn't use it. I counted, for instance, I didn't count Bitcoin because I haven't actually used Bitcoin. I've used Ethereum and stuff like that, right? So 18 out of the 25 I've used. And then how many would I miss? I counted 12 that I would miss if they weren't there anymore. So what are you coming up with?
I've used 20. I don't know how many I would miss. I would have to go back through the list.
Let's go through.
Okay. So I wouldn't miss Facebook. I barely use it at all anyway. YouTube, that's 90% of my time. I would miss YouTube for sure. X, I have used. I don't think that I would miss it, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
Instagram, I wouldn't miss it. TikTok, I wouldn't miss it. Snapchat, I wouldn't miss it. Reddit, I might miss Reddit, but that's usually when I have a problem.
Well, count it then.
I do this?
I mean, then you missed it.
Gmail, I guess. I don't know if I'd miss it. I would just use a different email service.
Okay.
It's not great. I'm going to take it off.
Okay.
It's not great. It hasn't kept up.
Mhm.
WhatsApp, I don't use that much. Uber, I don't know. I don't use it that much.
Okay.
Airbnb, I would miss. I like
Okay.
Airbnb. Instacart, I'm not going to use anymore. This isn't 2020 anymore. DoorDash, I'll just be honest and say sure. Netflix streaming, I'm going to put all streaming services in with that. Yeah, I'd miss that. Amazon Prime, sure. Google Maps, yes. Tesla Roadster, I'm just going to go with Teslas. I don't know.
Well, the Roadster, would you miss it if it didn't exist?
Yeah.
You rode in one. So.
Sure. iPad, not really. Fitbit, no. Chrome, sure. Zoom, I guess, 11. And SpaceX Falcon 1, I'd miss. So 12. So same as you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm just interested for you guys. Post it down below. So how many you've used, how many you'd miss, just for fun. I just wondered. And Elon says a lot has happened. And yeah, I just 20 years. A lot of things that if on this list, and this isn't everything, but a lot of things that if you didn't have them today, you would miss them. And I'm curious how many you would miss. That's about half the things. So let's go to Volta Trucks.
Remember Volta Trucks, the London-based electric truck startup that filed for bankruptcy last month? Well, it looks like they might be getting a lifeline.
A hedge fund called Luxor Capital Group is in talks to acquire Volta Trucks out of bankruptcy. If the deal goes through, it could save hundreds of jobs in the UK where Volta Trucks is based. Luxor Capital Group is a major shareholder in Volta Trucks, and it's also one of the company's largest lenders.
So it makes sense that they would be interested in rescuing the startup.
Right, because you can't get paid back if the company goes out of business. Volta Trucks makes electric trucks for urban deliveries. The company's flagship model is the Volta Zero, which was supposed to start production in Steyr, Austria. Does that sound familiar? With deliveries happening in Q3 of 2023.
Well, that didn't seem to happen.
Yeah, Volta had said that they had over 300 orders or $92 million in revenues coming in, but now they seem to be blaming Proterra, who was their battery partner and who is also going bankrupt, as the reason why they started having problems. And again, this is a company that was going to sub out the building of the trucks to, I think, Magna Steyr, because that's the company in Austria. Not a bad idea, I suppose. But again, it kind of shows you how much of this was just kind of computery, like, look at our cool truck. I'm not saying they didn't have prototypes and stuff, but again, making the truck, mass producing it, being profitable, way harder. And why didn't they have backup battery suppliers? I mean, that just shows you how, our one battery supplier is gone. So we had no idea they'd go bankrupt.
And they weren't like a cell supplier. They were a battery pack supplier, which is about 50% of the truck. I mean, let's be real.
All right, let's go to Toyota. So in this week's weekly Toyota press release telling us how awesome they are, we get this. Toyota's long-range solid-state EV batteries will be more limited than expected. So remember, we were told all this about how Toyota was going to come out with breakthrough batteries, with ranges of 621 miles and another with 745 miles. And this tech would be here in 2027. Well, now a recent Toyota Times post said that the mass production won't happen until 2030 and beyond.
Oh, wait, what's that?
2030 and beyond.
2030 and beyond. They're not going to translate.
We're not going to do that, actually.
And Toyota's report notes that the production will only be enough for over 10,000 vehicles.
And Toyota just cut their EV sales forecast for the year by 40%, and they'll be leaning into hybrids to, quote, avoid price competition.
Yeah, so here's what you do. You release press releases that are, rosy. You get press. Then you have to finally kind of catch up with the truth a little bit because it's gotten a little out of hand. So you release a press release that uses a lot of words that don't say anything. Takes people like us to actually...
It'll be limited. It'll be limited. Limited sounds good. Right. Oh, a limited edition.
And so you don't come out and actually say that what you just said a few weeks ago was a lie. You just kind of tamper expectations, or at least have this fallback so that later you can be like, no, we put out a press release in November. Don't you remember seeing it? It said that we were going to have a limited blah, blah, blah. And that way, look, if this is not proof that Toyota is just lying, bald-faced lying, and it's not fun for other press outlets to cover this because Toyota is a major advertiser. So if we were being, if Toyota was a major founder, sponsor of the show, and we started doing this, they'd be like, Zach and Jesse, hang on. But they're not. So we can say whatever the we want.
And I just want you to picture if this was a person in your life. This would be a person who is going to be like, I'm going to come to the party and I'm going to bring all the beer. Guys, don't even worry about it.
That's great.
There's going to be dip and chips. And
dip
all
and
sorts
chips?
of amazing things. I'm going to have party balloons
kind of
that are
beer
going
are
to
you
spell
bringing?
your name. I'm going to have the most amazing beer.
Oh my God.
It doesn't even exist yet.
Wow.
Then I go, hey guys.
I won't be showing up till
This
3 a.m.
party, yeah. Hey, you know how the party starts at 8? I'm going to get there at 3 o'clock in the morning.
And the beer's going to be warm, and I'm only going to have a 6-pack.
I'm only going to be bringing a 6-pack. Is that cool? That's
Wait,
not
you
how they
said you
talk. They're going to sound like,
Oh yeah, man! I was like, oh god, I really wasted, and I drank all the beer, and I'm gonna bring a 6-pack. Is that cool?
Or
But
if you're
it's
Toyota,
only-
it's gonna be there'll just be limited supplies of the beer appearing after 3 a.m.
it's just wild.
Let's go to another one.
But again, it's as if this person was in your life, but just a little bit. But they would only shout the things that you wanted to hear. I'm gonna be there. It's gonna be great.
And then when you tried to go, Jesse's an ass. He's and people be like, no, I heard he brought all this great beer.
Yeah,
and you'd be
I heard
like,
he's
no, he
great.
didn't. Let's go to Ford, okay? Because Ford just altered their EV dealer program. Do you remember when Ford laid out plans for this 2-tiered dealership program to get their dealers pumped about selling their EVs? Remember, there was Certified Elite, where you'd have to install 2 level 3 chargers. So those are the fast chargers, and 5 level 2 chargers. Okay. Then, if you just want to be a certified dealer, you only had to install 1 level 3 charger and 2 level 2 chargers. Well, remember, there's a lot of pushback from dealers like, that's very expensive, and I don't want to do that because I don't like EVs. Well, now Ford has pretty much scrapped the whole thing after dealer pushback. Now, neither will have to install any level 3 chargers, and you'll only have to install a couple level 2 chargers. They had till the end of this year, but you know what? Forget about it. We'll give you till next year. Spokesperson at Ford said, Ford stands by its voluntary Model E EV program. Again, this is doublespeak. This is 1984 newspeak, doublespeak, right? It is, wait a minute, this wasn't a voluntary program. This was a volunteer if you want to actually sell our EVs. But of course, Ford is delaying their 600,000 run rate. They were going to have 600,000 EVs next year, and they pushed that off a year. In fact, they're delaying their whole $12 billion spend on EVs altogether. So, Ford, you're going the wrong way on the highway. And again, I say bye-bye, Ford, because this is proof that you guys are completely gone.
To be fair, the dealership thing where you have to install chargers is stupid. It was never going to be a good idea, no matter how they did it. The only way that it would work is if each Ford dealer had to install 8 fast charging stations, and I mean at least 150 kilowatts.
But let's just be smart here for a second. If you are going to sell EVs at a Ford dealership, let's say you're going to sell, a couple F-150s a week, you have to have enough charging infrastructure so that when people come in to do test drives, you're like, we would, except the battery's empty. Because you'd immediately turn customers into, wait a minute, battery's empty. You'd have to keep just your own cars on your lot charged. And I think that's all Ford was doing here, was just like, you have to have enough infrastructure, guys. It's like if you had no gas stations within 50 miles. I think that's all they were doing. I think if you were a smart Ford dealer, you would have been like, we'll have 8 out front. It'd be great. And when you stop and charge, we'll have, Bob go out there with donuts and try and sell you more cars. But they're stupid. And they're like, we don't want to spend any money.
Well, but the other thing is, okay, so you have a Ford F-150 Lightning and you drive it to the Ford dealership that's on the way to grandma's house and you're charging there. The Ford salesman comes out. What's he going to sell you? Another Ford F-150 Lightning or the Mach-E? That's the only two. It's like,
hey, you have one. Do you want the other one?
I want us to watch the 6-minute video where Eric Weinstein talks about how AI is taking over. Check this out.
You just lost your capitalist model. You have a model with two inputs called K and L that's taught in every university that subscribes to neoclassical economics. What's AI? Is it L? Is it labor? Is it capital? What the heck is it? This is the first time that humans are not being chased into higher and higher levels of work. We're being chased out of repetitive work, whether it's high-level repetitive work in the way that a neurosurgeon might perform, or low-level repetitive work. So your model of economics just broke. Now, when your water breaks, when your wife's water breaks, it doesn't mean that the baby is born instantly. When the contractions are coming, 15 minutes apart, it's not yet time to be born. This is the moment. Why are we not holding a conference on after capitalism and communism? What is the next economic system? Do you imagine that Adam Smith and Karl Marx would just be sitting on their hands? No, they'd be smart enough to say, okay, we now need a new model. It is bizarre that we are sitting here inert saying, gosh, this is going to break capitalism. Well, no kidding. This is going to break capitalism. It's entirely clear that it's going to break capitalism. And you have this fabric. It's really fascinating. You have a fabric that is overlying the entire world that directs people whether to get up in the morning and what to do once they do rise. And it tells them how to do things without having a dictator. So it's not just the invisible hand, it's the invisible mesh. And this invisible mesh, if it breaks, means people are not going to know what to do in the morning. And now you can see that this is going to break it. Now you have a brief period of time with what my wife has called, as she's an economist with the Institute for New Economic Thinking. She says this is the golden age of AI complementarity, where a human being making prompts can ask the large language model or neural net, whatever you like, questions, and the two of them in dialogue can create something. It's sort of like when humans and computers started playing chess together. This is going to quickly give way to where the AI says, I can take it from here.
And how quick do you think it's going to be, Eric?
Probably pretty quick, but keep in mind that there's some things that could happen. Because what these machines are doing is reading a human corpus when it comes to language models, let's say, it could be that they asymptote based on how clever we've been. For example, they don't do a very good job in areas where there are fewer than 200 people writing about a very high-level scientific subject. So I ask these computer models a lot about determinant line bundles, not something in general conversation. And they're terrible at it because they don't know what to read or how much, they don't have enough. So it's possible that that could asymptote. But the thing you really have to keep in mind is that a clever person at one of these AI outfits might figure out how to teach computers to do things that no one has done. So we know that they have emergent behaviors, that you may not teach them Bengali, but they realize they have to learn Bengali in order to tell you about Tagore, so learn Bengali they do. That's an emergent behavior. What happens when they start to, I hesitate to give you an example because I think this could be weaponized. So maybe I'm not going to say what I think you could actually teach one of these machines to do. All hell's about to break loose. And my question is, are you trying to figure out which way the wave is going to break and get your surfboard in the water? Are you trying to figure out how to anticipate this? No, in general, we sit around worrying about it in the most inert way possible. And I just don't understand the learned helplessness. This is, your wife's water is broken and you're thinking, this is terrible. It's like you have to be thinking, get to the hospital.
Agreed. Temperamentally, I'm with you. But I think what Francis is getting at is, look, I introduced you as one of the smartest people in the world. I stand by that introduction. There are also some other smart people some of whom are saying, we got to shut this shit down right now. We need a moratorium. We can't allow this to go.
How's that working?
I don't agree.
No, I'm not saying whether it's a good idea or a bad idea.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, how is it working when China and Russia and Iran are reading these papers?
That's why it's not going to work, and I agree with you. But I think our question that we're trying to get at is, why are people like Elon Musk so concerned about AI?
Because he's smart. Because he doesn't see anybody really. I mean, look, I don't know. Elon and I are sort of leading parallel lives. He must be aware of me. Sometimes he answers me on Twitter, and sometimes we encounter each other in spaces. But we know probably 25 people in common at a very high level. We never encounter each other. I can't tell you what's going on with Elon. Elon is on all of the major narratives, and I 90 to 95% agree with him on everything right up until the very end. And I don't know why that goes wrong. But his whole narrative about getting off the planet and diversifying the number of places where the spark of human consciousness can be found without having all of our eggs in one basket, 100% right. And then it becomes a SpaceX pitch for Mars, which loses me, but then again, I don't own a chemical rocket company. In the case of AI, the fact is he was seeing this early, and he saw Sam Altman make these other decisions. They were all at this I think Sam wasn't at the Puerto Rico conference, but all of these folks who were at the Puerto Rico conference knew that this was coming. Now, 2017 is the dividing line, I think, in AI, because this paper, Attention is All You Need, makes it clear to all of us, not through the paper, but through the consequences, that this is as real as a heart attack.
I want to spend another 5 minutes with Jan LeCun, a different kind of perspective here, because I don't want you to say I'm just like getting us all scared. Let's take a look at Jan.
Here's the thing. There is no question, absolutely no question, that at some point in the future, perhaps decades from now, we'll have AI systems that are as smart as humans in all the domains where humans are smart. And because humans are specialized, those systems might be specialized in different ways, but will be as smart as human, if not significantly smarter in all domains where humans are smart. Now, you say, oh my God, they're going to take over the world. No. Intelligence has nothing to do with the desire to dominate. Let's take humans. So humans have a desire to dominate. Some humans, not everybody. And it's not the smartest among us who want to dominate. We have examples of this on the international political scene, on a daily basis. There's probably some evolutionary reasons for this, right? If you are not that smart, you need the help from others, so you need to influence them. If you're smart, you can survive by yourself. That's the first point. Second point is, we are used to working with people who are smarter than us. I don't know about you, but I used to lead a research lab, and the only people I would hire were people who are smarter than me. It's actually great to work with people who are smarter than you. And our relationship with future AI assistants, which will help us in our daily lives, right? Project ourselves 10, 20 years from now, we'll have AI assistants that will help us in our daily lives. And they'll probably be smarter than us. But they will make us smarter. We will direct them. They will be subservient to us. It's not because they are smart that they want to dominate. The idea that you want to dominate is due to the fact that we are a social species. Because we are a social species, we need to be able to influence others, and that's where domination and submission comes from. We are a hierarchically organized social species. Evolution built that into us. It built that into chimpanzees, baboons, dogs, wolves. It didn't build this into orangutans. Orangutans have no desire to dominate anybody because they're not a social species. And they are almost as smart as we are. So that has nothing to do with intelligence. You can have a very intelligent system that has no desire to dominate at all. And so the way we will design those systems is to be smart. In other words, you give them a goal, they can solve that goal for you. But who determines the goal? We do. They will determine sub-goals. And the question of, the technical question of how you do this is not solved. This is something that we're imagining in the future, this objective-driven AI I was talking about before. But that's the future. Now, if we imagine that future, imagine that all of your interaction with the digital world and the world of information is through an AI agent. Those AI agents will be the repository of all human knowledge. It'd be kind of like Wikipedia you can talk to and can do inferences and everything. Okay, but knows more than Wikipedia. This would be a common platform, sort of like the internet today. It has to be open. It cannot be proprietary. It's way too dangerous for this to be proprietary. That's your next movie. That's really the scary stuff. If you have a small number of West Coast companies controlling super intelligent AI systems, they can control everybody's opinion, culture, everything. Maybe the US government will go along with this. That's called regulatory capture. But I tell you, no other government in the world will find this acceptable. They don't want American culture to dominate theirs. They will have to build their own LLMs. So the only way to make this work is if you have basically open source, basic structure. This is one reason why Meta open sourced Llama 2, because it's a basic infrastructure. And before that, Meta released PyTorch. ChatGPT is built with PyTorch. It's a software system to build AI systems. So this will have to be open source. And the way you would train those systems will have to be crowdsourced, because you want those systems to be the repository of all human knowledge. And so all humans have to contribute to it. And it will not contribute to a proprietary system built by OpenAI or whoever, or by Meta. It will have to be open source. Despite, regardless of how dangerous you think this is, that's the way it has to go.
Okay, and Elon responded to Jan. He said, our digital god will be in the form of a CSV file. I didn't see that coming, to be honest. Now, if you walk away from this discussion with nothing else, as an investor, I hope it is this. If AI is a humanity-ending event, kind of like Eric was talking about, then it may not matter as an investor whether you understand it and what's coming. But if AI does not end humanity and instead ushers in a new economic era, those who understand it will likely fare better than those who don't. And let me explain. If I was an investor in a country that was about to get a stock market, let's use the US, for example. When did the US first get a stock market?
1981?
1792. It was under a buttonwood tree on Wall Street. It was 24 stockbrokers and merchants. They signed the Buttonwood Agreement, and they established the New York Stock Exchange.
In 1792?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This agreement said that all trades had to be conducted in person, so a brokerage, and all brokers must be members of the exchange. It also said the commission rate for brokers was set at 2.5% of the value of each trade. So can you imagine how much money you made if you were a broker?
So
you're sending those ships full of slaves to, blah, blah, blah. I will get 2.5% of that.
Jesus.
Okay, so if I had been an investor in New York City in 1792, and if I had heard about this stock exchange forming, I could have done one of two things. Number one, I could have ignored it and said, who are those 24 jokers wasting their time? I'm going to go focus on something else. Two, I could have looked into it some more, found out who those 24 merchants and brokers were, come to the conclusion that this was probably a big deal, and then learned everything I could about this new stock exchange. If in doing so, I had started following their trades and maybe found out how I could get in on some of their trades, I might have had a few buildings in Manhattan named after me by now. What I'm getting at is that we are at the beginning of something that very few of us really understand, including myself. It's like when the internet started. When I was 18, I think I've told you this story before, I started using Prodigy internet service, which allowed me to send emails and read movie reviews and get weather using the internet. That seems quaint by now, right? By today's standards. And I remember when I would talk about it with other people, a lot of them would say, oh, that's cool, but I can get the weather from TV and movie reviews from the newspaper, and it costs money to subscribe. So I think sending emails is stupid. I'll just send letters. I had no idea that I'd be banking, buying stocks with my phone, FaceTiming, Zooming with people, asking AI LLMs questions, buying Teslas online, streaming movies online, everything online a couple decades later. You could also argue that a lot of people went bust during the dot-com bubble of the early 2000s, buying stocks in pets.com, which includes myself, that didn't do well. And that's probably why I was turned off to being an early investor in Google. I felt like I just didn't understand how the internet worked. But this disruption is going to happen whether we want to follow it or not, whether we understand it or not, or whether we invest in it or not. I'm not asking you to invest in AI right now. What I'm asking you to do is to invest your time and focus into understanding what is happening and what will be happening in the world of AI. I think Eric is right that there will be this transition where humans who can access AI and prompt AI will have an advantage over people that don't. It could be a very lucrative period of human history for those who get involved in AI. It could also be very short-lived. It only may last for 2 or 3 years before the singularity happens. So investing could be moot if, like I said, AI leads to the end of civilization as we know it, or if AI leads to the end of capitalism as we know it. Maybe the next stage of human economics will be some kind of altruistic era of plenty, where everyone on the planet gets money from the AI leader every week. Or maybe there won't be money at all. It is, after all, a relatively new human invention, and maybe it will be disrupted. Money is at the root of all evil, right? Maybe AI, being so much smarter than any of us, will devise an economic system that maximizes happiness and reduces suffering more than capitalism does. Just because I can't fathom it doesn't mean it won't happen. I couldn't fathom half the things that exist today. You may say this is just an academic exercise. I have better things to do, Zach, than sit around and try and figure out what's going to happen with AI. Let's just let it play out. Sure. But you're here in the Investor Club, and part of my job is to be on the lookout for investment opportunities and for ways to stay sharp as investors. And I see this freight train coming down the tracks that we're all standing on. And to me, every day, less and less matters besides this freight train that is AI. Now, I'm not trying to scare you. I just think that we have a real opportunity here to better understand it together. We have the tools. We need to wrap our head around this. And here are the tools that I'm talking about, the way I see it. Our Investor Club Slack is a tool. Grok is a tool. Perhaps other AI models. X is a tool, and YouTube is a tool. That is our university. We have the smart people, you. We have the library, Grok and X and YouTube. And we have the lecture hall, our Slack. So let's get to work. Let's learn. Let's be curious. Let's find those smart people on X that are working on AI. Let's follow them. Let's learn from them. Some of you right here are in the AI field. So let's help us better understand it, and let's learn together. Now, worst case, we'll be some of the smartest investors in the world on the day that the world ends for humans. Best case, we'll be some of the smartest investors in the world on the day that the new era of economics begins. Or more likely, it'll be somewhere in between. But we'll have a lot of fun together in the meantime. So just to be clear, we're not financial advisors. Do not follow advice. But my cheat code for all of I just said is to invest in Tesla. Okay? Because if Tesla does indeed invest in XAI, then you've got yourself an XAI, an AI company. You've got one of the smartest people in the world, Elon, who already have seen most of this coming. And so, a lot of these companies you can't even invest in anyway. You can't invest in OpenAI or any of these things.
And I just want to posit this. I think that if there was going to be a human-written new world economic model, there's a good chance that it could happen on our Slack. I don't want you to think that we're just a bunch of bozos, all of us, and that we couldn't come up with something quite profound. I think that we are in the right place at the right time with the right people.
No, it's a really good point. I mean, you were down in Washington, D.C. over the break.
I got to see the Declaration of Independence with my own eyes and the Constitution. And I was looking at it and I was going, this is just a fucking piece of paper. It's a profound piece of paper. It's what's kind of launched our country and most of the democracies around the world. But it is just a piece of paper. It was written by guys in a stuffy room in Philadelphia in the summer. Okay? They all got to... Where did they all get all their ideas from? They started in the coffee shops, and then they all came together into places where they're going to talk about this stuff. Well, we've had the coffee shops, so to speak, where we've been interested in this stuff and we're talking to each other. I say that we sit down and we figure this stuff out. What's the worst thing that could happen? Worst case, we pick the wrong one and the world goes in a different direction. I do think that we can start to find some of the solutions, but again, we do need to be as educated as possible.
Right. So again, thank you for being members of the Investor Club. We'll see you next week, and hopefully we'll bump into some of you in Austin at the Cybertruck after party on Thursday.